Hi, everyone. Bob Dietrich here with another episode of the ADHD Toolbox. And today's episode, we're going to talk to BrainWorx. BrainWorx is the sponsor of the ADHD Toolbox, and they specialize in brain development, which is a non-medical, you don't need medicine, just movement-based therapy to help build your brain and develop your brain to get past those behavioral and learning challenges that your kids might be having at school, at home, or you may be having as an adult. We're going to talk to the founder of BrainWorx, which is Alma Galvan. Alma, welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me, Bob.
I'm not going to get too much into Alma's credentials and things like that, because Alma's got a story that she's going to be talking to you about today that is going to kind of explain everything to you. So I'm not going to spoil it with my intro. What I will do, though, is tell you that today what we're going to talk about after we listen to Alma and hear a little bit about her story, we're going to talk about how brain development is being used to help families overcome these behavioral and learning challenges, these meltdowns that are happening in the grocery stores with your kids, and the phone calls that you're getting, perhaps daily from the school and things like that you want to overcome. We're going to show you how she overcame these and how you can do it too without medication, and if you choose to do that, and on a fast track. We're also going to talk to teachers and how awesome this program has been in schools, and the amazing results that Alma's seen in schools, and how adults can use this as well. It'll work on everyone to help develop their brain to get to a point where they're past some of the challenges that they may have that may be holding them back. So lots of good stuff. Let's unpack all of it. So Alma, let's start with your story. How did all this get started with BrainWorx and this brain development program that you have right now?
So BrainWorx actually became a product of my life journey. It originally started with my boys. I have two sons that had a lot of challenges when they were young. Both of them had tremendous learning difficulties. They had language barriers. We had meltdowns galore. It wasn't like, well, are they going to have a meltdown? It was how many? And what's the duration of it, and can I get them not to melt down at the same time? So they both had, they didn't speak until after they were 6 years old. We could communicate, but not really being able to have a conversation with other people. So needless to say, it was in the 90s, and there was very little that I found about how to help my kids. And it was very, very hard. It was very frustrating. It was very disheartening to really not have answers as to what's really going on. Why are they behaving this way? Why are they having these kinds of challenges? And nobody could really give me answers, and more importantly, solutions. And so after I really got out of my own little pity party, because as you can imagine, with two boys that had this kind of significant challenges and no real answers, and no real direction as to how I could move along, one of the biggest things that just kept coming in my mind is like, there's got to be a way that there's got to be a way, and there's got to be answers to how I can help my boys.
And you couldn't just Google it back then, right? I mean,
there was no Google.
Yeah, there was no Google. I mean, you had to go out into the field, into life, and find it somewhere. So
yes, and and personally, this is just my personal journey, that I would go to the library and I would have. That's probably where I got a huge amount of information at the very, very beginning. And I would try to go to support groups, but honestly, the support groups for me, they ended up depressing me more, because it was like it almost felt like I was just not doing enough of the right things. But what were the right things? What was the enough that I needed to do? So when I started really figuring out that my kids had come to me for a reason, and I was going to figure out how to help them, and without medications. Like, one of the things that I was like, I don't want medication. That's just me. I think that, you know, for some kids, it really is an amazing part, and that's just a preference that I think that every parent should make. But I just wanted something to work, but you know, so medication was like the last thing that we actually even did, and that didn't work, by the way. So I just kept searching for things, and when I tried a lot of things, I mean, I did pivotal response, discrete trial, floor time, all kinds of things, because they were diagnosed with the whole alphabet, you know, autism, ADD, ADHD, sensory processing disorder. And all of these labels drove me crazy, because they were labels that they were talking about what behavior, or they had a whole bunch of behaviors, and then they would give them a label. But what does that really mean? And especially the one that talked about sensory processing disorder. It's like, well, what does that mean? And nobody could really tell me. It's like, what does it really mean, and what do I do about it? So when I came across this process that's called neurological reorganization, that lifted and changed everything in my world, because now I actually understood that the brain needed to have these functions available in order for the child or the person to be able to have life come a little easier, or a lot easier. And when I looked at the behaviors and the functions, I noticed that then the functions that my kids did not have were completely connected to the brain, and how it was not organized, and how they didn't have the brain development in place, because of, there's a whole bunch of series that we can go into of why they didn't have it there, but they didn't. And that's the bottom line. And in that, having that there, then they showed up with all kinds of behaviors. And one of the big ones was the sensory processing has to do with this one part of the brain that's called the midbrain. So the early centers is actually compiled about with two parts of the brain. One is the pons, one is the midbrain, and reflexes are involved as well within it as well. But the midbrain has to do with crawling. And crawling, if a child did not crawl enough as a baby, then they can't process the world the way that you would if you had these functions available. So auditory processing, being able to shift gears, being able to just go with the flow, being able to not have tags bother you, sock seams bother you, all of those things were detrimental in my kids' life. And I didn't know why. It's like, why did they only want to have, like, you know, jogger pants or t-shirts? They couldn't wear jeans, they couldn't wear a shirt. That would drive them crazy. And I'm like, what's wrong with that?
Right.
Until you realize that that's actually a function that is acquired when we crawl. So it's beautiful to then connect those dots and go, so all I needed to go is back. But it's simple, and it's profound changes that happen when you go back and rewire the brain, finish developing these centers of the brain, so that then we acquire functions, and life literally does become so much more manageable.
Right. And so your program, I mean, it's not just crawling, it's a whole suite of different movements, and that help develop the brain. And how long did it take for you to start to see results since you started doing this?
I started noticing results, like little tiny things, within like a week and a half, that I had not seen with any other program. And that just kind of excited me even more. And innately too, I gotta say, like, when I learned about this, there was something that it's like, oh my gosh, this makes sense to me. And so then it was like, oh, I started having to do the movements with them. And subsequently, I actually acquired a lot of functions that I didn't realize were not as solid as I thought they were. And I didn't know that until I didn't have to work so hard. So there's, you know, you're right. BrainWorx is a combination of different processes, but the most powerful one that I found in my journey, in my life, that really allowed me to see and get to know my sons as who they really are.
Got
and
it.
not as behaviors and challenges.
So you I mean, you tried lots of different stuff, and it sounds like BrainWorx is um, all the all the processes that you found, a combination of all the processes that you found that just work like magic. I mean, they just transform quickly and permanently.
Yes, the combination of three processes actually, combining them together is almost in my world really transformed so many parts about my life and in their life that's it's just three, to be honest, but there's three very profound. So the neurological part allows the brain to finish developing those early centers of the brain. And why that's really critical is because the pons is responsible. Now, the pons is part of the reptilian part of the brain, which is responsible for the fight or flight. And so if the child didn't creep, they're on their belly and moving on their belly, then this part of the brain did not get enough development so that the brain can perceive things that are threatening or not. And so if it stayed underdeveloped, it's perceiving almost everything, if
Hmm.
not everything, to be a threat.
Hmm.
And sometimes it could be as simple as, you know, mom saying, hey, it's time to go, turn off the iPad and go take a shower. It's like, oh my gosh, that's like
Right.
it's a threat. No,
Right.
I can't. Um,
Or
so
homework or anything, put the cereal back, meltdown. You have, so anything is perceived as a threat, and that's why they go into the fight or flight. And it sounds like they're, from what I've learned working with you, it sounds like fight or flight for these kids, especially with ADD, ADHD, autism, is always on. And that by doing the brain development, you can turn off this fight or flight mechanism and drastically reduce a lot of these meltdowns.
absolutely. And what happens when the fight or flight gets gets kind of turned off,
Hmm.
then you're really able to be more in your cortex, be able to show who you really are,
Yeah.
have just the not as much anxiety. Anxiety is a huge part of that part of the
Hmm.
brain that kicks in.
Hmm.
So nothing else is that important as to survive. So survival is the highest priority. And if I
Right.
feel like I'm threatened in any way, shape, or form, forget about everything else.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
once that starts to when we get out of survival, and then the crawling allows us to acquire more functions to be able to go with the flow, be able to shift gears, be able to wear different clothing, be
Filter
able to
out
process,
distractions, right?
right, be able to exactly be able to prioritize. And if I didn't crawl enough, I can't prioritize. So I'm uh, incoming information is
Right.
priority. So
Right.
I can't decipher what is really priority and what is not. And
Right.
so once we did enough of the brain exercises, I mean, so many things changed. But I found myself still very emotionally charged whenever I saw them doing anything that resembled even um, them having a challenge from back then, that it was like, oh my gosh, this is never going to end. This is always going to be a struggle. They're going to not be able to be self-sufficient. They're going to end up homeless. We would always go I would always go to like the worst case scenario because that's what our brain does.
That's what we do.
And so I got to learn a process, actually a combination of things that I combined with other types of trainings that we call a rewire. What it is looking at subconscious beliefs
Hmm.
and then switching what they
Hmm.
are.
Hmm.
If they're not serving us, we want to switch them. So one of the ones that I thought was, and I had it within me, was I'm not enough. Like I'm not doing enough for them. And whatever they're doing, it's a complete reflection of me. And so don't do that because then people are going to think I'm a bad parent. I'm going to think I'm a bad parent. I just don't want that kind of self-criticism. So you better make sure that you act in the best possible way.
Right.
That's a lot of stress on the child, to be put, but it's a lot of stress that I actually had within me that once I started doing this process that's called a rewire, then I was able to have them be themselves, and me being able to show up and help them be the best they could be for
Mm-hmm.
that moment in time, and not have it be about my feelings and my beliefs. And so, you know, having one that said, I am enough. I
Right.
love that, you know, because now anything I do, it's not from a space of not feeling worthy, not feeling enough, not feeling like I am not doing enough for them.
Right. Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. And rewires, I have to say, I've done a few of these, and just my own experience. You know, I had been doing public speaking for 18 years with Toastmasters, and you would think after 18 years that I would be more comfortable in front of the stage, but every time I got on, especially, you know, the bigger the crowd, the bigger the nerves, and I would just get, I wouldn't freeze, but I would definitely be in fight or flight. And because I was so nervous, right? And I had skills, right? I had developed the skills over these 18 years, but I had not uh, got over that fear. And I just figured that was just the way it was going to be. I was afraid and I got on stage anyway, and that's just the way I had to do it. But it was stopping me from actually getting booked and speaking in front of people subconsciously. And I didn't know that. And then I started working with Alma. We did a few of these rewire processes, which are nothing more than creating a new neural pathway in your brain, right? Connecting a couple neurons to create this new belief. And although the other one is still there, now you got this new one. If it's more pleasurable, you're automatically going to do it. And so we started working with it. And within 2 months, the fear completely went away. And I have to say that I've been in front of crowds up to 700 people now, and it has been like the fear is just gone, and it's just so cool. I was presenting at my mother's memorial last week, and it was 200 people, and normally it would be, you know, I was nervous, and I would be nervous. And in this case, I didn't have even a little bit of nerves. And what that did for me is that I got to be there for my mom, and I got to say what I really wanted to say. And it can, you know, because when you're in fight or flight, you can't think, right? So you lose that capacity to, you know, almost channel these thoughts, right? Because I could lay in bed and I can think of these amazing speeches, but then I get on stage and I lose it all because I'm in fight or flight. But now, because of the rewires I've done, I'm able to capture that. So that's just one example of how, when you get over these limiting beliefs and these things that stop you and these fears, that you can really have your life excel. And for you, it sounds like, Alma, what was happening is you had beliefs that were stopping you with working with your kids and things, and that's what you've seen it do for you, as well as many other things.
so many beliefs, because
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you, when I first even started talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
it was really challenging for me to talk to people. I really did not want to have anything to do with people, to be honest. Like, I wanted a 9 to 5 job that I would be working with computers.
Right.
That was my plan.
Yeah.
It was a master plan, that then I didn't have to talk to people, because I was really shy
Right.
growing up. You know, when my parents had people over, I would be in my room. Shyness, though, by the way, from a brain's perspective, has to do with that early center of the brain, the pons not being completed. So I thought it was just my personality, that I was just a shy person. I was a quiet person. And having now 2 boys that really required a lot of attention and a lot of out in the world, you know, doing
Mm-hmm.
things, it
Mm-hmm.
was terrifying. And the more that then I did these movements, the more that I felt more within my body, within myself, more well, with more ability and capability to really make a difference in their life. And then other people started seeing the changes in my kids' lives, and they're like, well, would you work with my child? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. And that's literally how it all started. My kids started getting better. I
Mm-hmm.
started working with other people's children, and it
Yeah. Organically, right? They were just asking
organically,
you. They see the
no,
results and they just want you to work with
yeah,
them. That's
yes. And
amazing.
so after now 20 years, I've really gotten to work with thousands of people. And the more that I saw my kids, it really was it's just almost like magic in my life that once I started looking back and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just such a gift that I was able to
Hmm.
see where I was back then and now see where they're out, because now they're 27 and 25 and they both work. They, you know, Manny's my oldest and he has a girlfriend. Adrian drives and he just bought himself a new car. I was like, he bought it. I was like, that's really cool.
They're both working. I mean, they're
They're
both
both,
self-sufficient. It's just amazing.
yeah, they're fairly independent, just little things here and there, but from where they started off, it's like it's minor,
Hmm.
you know, and so it's really cool to see that. And so the more I saw the changes in my life and in my kids, and I saw the need in our society of how our children in our community really are struggling and our teachers are struggling, then this sense of I need to do more. There's
Right.
more that needs to be done. So I started getting restless with the thought of feeling responsible, really feeling like I had a gift that we could share and we could come together as a community and then help more children. And so that's how actually BrainWorx came about. That I collaborated now with other people to be able to then go into schools. So BrainWorx actually has become a nonprofit.
Hmm.
And we're really excited about that because now we can connect with community partners and go into schools. And this is where I'm really excited about it. I love working with families. We love working with families, but we feel like we're going to really be able to make a huge impact on how we can provide education and support for our community. And
Right.
so we are in schools. We've actually trained about 12 schools this year, and we're teaching the teachers what behaviors really are connected to these early centers of the brain, but more importantly, what can they do to change their classroom? And so what we've done is we have a program where we go into the schools, we're training the teachers, but we're giving them tools as to how they can actually weave in these movements that are so powerful
Hmm.
throughout their day, and their day starts to become easier with these kids. Because let's just face it, our kids are in school, the teachers are having a huge challenge with ADD, ADHD,
Right.
um, so many other challenges that they really are not, well, they're doing the best they can, but we know, and what we've seen in our community is that BrainWorx really is a huge support, a huge tool to be able to work together, not only with the teachers, but also with businesses. And, you know, businesses can come in and sponsor a school in their community to be able to get more support and training for their teachers. And we're really excited about that. And, you know, to be able to go into the schools that have been doing this. We
Hmm.
have one school that's been doing this now for 5 years, and we go into these schools, and
Hmm.
you know, the difference in how when we started to now after 5 years, it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful to see the
And the,
kids just being able to transition and being
right.
able to learn.
And the difference between one school and another as well. You know, school that's been doing it for 5 years or even a year, and a school that has not has been amazing. I know I've been into several of these schools, and the teachers say the same thing over and over again, which is it used to be one or two kids in the school had a behavioral learning challenge, usually like ADHD or something. And now it's one or two, 3 or 4 kids per classroom. So it's exploded. And if you're watching this and you have a child with ADD or autism or something like that, you're definitely not alone. And what we've seen is as they implement the BrainWorx technology into their classrooms, they have complete transformation, and the teachers just feel so relieved because they're able to get back to teaching and not kind of refereeing, and spending so much time with the kids that have behavioral and learning challenges. And it's just it's been phenomenal. So yeah, I can speak from experience going out in the field watching these transformations happen. It's truly amazing stuff.
You know, and when you realize how the early centers of the brain have a huge correlation with learning,
Mm-hmm.
And we go into the schools and we train the teachers as to what does this really mean. The compassion that comes to them instantly is incredible, because they had a sense of what's going on with this kid. It's like they're defiant, they're, strong-willed, hard-headed, all
Right.
of these,
Right.
these senses of what these kids are. But when you tell them, it's like, actually, no, it's because, we give them all kinds of different reasons why it's not neurologically possible for this child to be able to do what you're asking them to do. They're like,
Right.
and so then they look at this child completely different. And now that child is having, at least the space for them to be able to be more supported in the way that they need to.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things I've seen, is that as the teacher has a deeper understanding of what's happening with the child, and that they can't do some of the things they're asking them to do, but as they understand, they do know how to work with them, so they get them to that place easier, and there's less resistance, and the teacher feels calmer and more empowered, because they know that they can work with this child and they understand this child. They understand what he or she is going through. And then we give them even more tools to help calm them down, and everything just changes. So we change the perspective of the teachers. We help give them tools to help calm their classrooms down, help them become more organized and more focused. And it's just crazy stuff. And, thank God this is around at this time when we're having these, this explosion of ADHD in our communities.
Yeah, it's really challenging to see it, but it's really beautiful to know that we have a tool that can really help our community and our kids. And by far, you're absolutely, you've just laid it out.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful to see the perspective change. And then also, one of the big things that we wanted to do for the schools is to not have it be such an overwhelming program that it's like, oh my gosh, it's one more thing for teachers to do.
Right.
We really make it doable, and we start very slowly, but with movements that are, within a short amount of time, they're going to see changes. They see changes pretty quickly on, even though it's at a slower rate, just because we want to make sure that it's not overwhelming.
Right.
And it's working fantastic. So.
Yeah. So you work with schools and teachers. BrainWorx works with schools and teachers. You also work with families in a family program. So you have an online program if families want to just work at their own pace. Or you also, I understand, you work with people in one-on-one sessions. So you also do private sessions. So we've heard about the family work that you do, and we've heard about the teacher work. What about adults that have ADHD? How does that work?
It's the same. It's basically the same way. It's just more targeted towards what the adults are going through. We have, children have a certain challenge. Adults, we kind of seem to think, and we put ourselves as like, oh, this is just how I am. So it's really going deeper into where the challenges are in the brain, and just, developing those parts of the brain. But really the rewire aspect for the adults are really, really, really critical, because we have formed ourselves an image of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it has to do with those beliefs that we had. Mm-hmm. Like, again, I used to think I was very shy. Hello. Not very shy. And I every single time that I would be speaking to somebody, my chatter in my mind is like, what are you thinking? Like, that was stupid to say. And that has subsided tremendously, that I can really just share my thoughts, share what I want to say, and not have it, not beat myself if I say something that is maybe not the best thing to say. It's just like, that's just who I am. And I show up as who I am. And it's very liberating. So with the adults, we really focus on getting them to go deeper into those areas that are stopping them from being who they really are.
Yeah, and with all you've said and all the magic that's done with the families and the children and the teachers, I really think adults can get the most out of this, because they can go deeper if they choose to. And what I discovered in working with you on this stuff is that I was working, I learned to work around my challenges, my beliefs, not big belief, my inability to create results, my executive function challenges or whatever. I learned to work around them. And so as adults, what I've learned is that we work around these problems, these limitations that our brain has. For example, I don't like to read so much, right? And my brain, because of the challenges with my own brain, is that I just don't track very well with the words, which is something that you overcome in this program. And so I would listen to more audiobooks and stuff, and that's how I got a lot of my education. And looking back in school, I understand how and why I had the challenges I did. But I've learned to work around it by creating by listening to books on tape. But as you do the rewires and more so as you do the brain development, you overcome these eye tracking challenges, so it is easier to read. And so that's one example of of what we do to work around our challenges instead of kind of solving them at the brain development level.
But and it's both, Bob, because I'll give you an example of one of the ones that was really, really challenging for me. When I was in third grade,
Mm-hmm.
a teacher asked me to read out loud, and I stumbled upon a couple of words, and everybody laughed. Such a simple example, but
Right.
what that translated to my brain was like, oh my gosh, I'm stupid. I can't
Right.
read. And so then anytime that I would have to read out loud, it like all of that, those emotions came up. And so, yes, I had part of the brain, the neuro aspect of it was not supporting me in the midbrain area,
Right.
which absolutely tracking, coming, our eyes coming together as a team. I could only comfortably read for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then it was too taxing on my brain. So then I would start to think about, what am I going to have for dinner?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
the more I did the brain development, I was able to then physically be able to read for longer periods of time and understand what I was reading. And then the rewires came in, and it was about, I am smart, and changing that belief that I was stupid, that I was not smart, that I couldn't read.
Yeah.
So it's the combination of both those things, both of them together, that it is incredible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, this is great information. So if you're viewing this program and you feel like if you have ADHD, you have a child that has ADHD, or any other behavioral learning challenge, you will see amazing results from this program. It works every time if you do the exercises. And it's almost got a 20-year track record working with thousands of people with these scientifically proven methods. So this is really good stuff. And Alma, you're offering a free session, I understand, for people who are interested in getting to know more about brain development.
Yes. So if you'd like to just connect with us, there's a link that Bob will have under this interview, and you can just uh, reserve a spot, and we will just have a conversation about any questions that you may have about brain development or rewires or our program, or and we'll do that free of charge for 30 minutes. Families and parents, they're more than welcome to do that. And then you have a gift for the teachers, correct?
Yeah, I do. Actually, we were talking about the teachers and the challenges that the teachers have had. And I've had a couple teachers view the first ADHD Toolbox, and we decided, you know what, we're going to make this available to teachers so teachers can come in and get this. So if you're a teacher watching this, you want to bring this to your school, you want every teacher in your school to see this, to see these top experts with ADHD talking and sharing their information and giving away these free gifts that are going to help teachers and or your parents with understanding and moving through their solutions. We are going to give this to you so you can have that as a resource. And also, what's super cool is that you may be able to use this as your continuing education credit, because we have over 16 hours, maybe at this point over over 24 hours of content from top experts in the field of ADHD, so you can deepen your understanding and find more solutions. So we're giving that to teachers and parents nationwide throughout the United States and abroad. Also, I wanted to mention that if you are scheduling an appointment with Alma, the link is below, as Alma said. And if you're in the US or Canada, just put in your phone number and we'll be able to call you and set up the phone on, set up the call on the phone. If you are not in the US, we'll do it on Zoom. So we will send you a Zoom link and that'll be included in the process. And you will want to connect with us on Zoom, and we'll have to set up a time that is, you know, it works, because Alma's in San Diego, California, and you may be not in San Diego. So we'll make that happen for you.
And Bob, I just wanted to say, I mean, I'm so excited and so blessed and so happy of what BrainWorx is doing, that we're actually pretty busy. So we're offering the 30-minute consultation with one of our team members. And so one of us will be, you know, we'll call them if they sign up for that. But it's so exciting to have, you know, the opportunity to really work with schools now. And, you know, every teacher we train is going to trickle the effects for more and more students to be helped. So if you're a business and would like to be part of our vision of helping more of our kiddos, and right now the kids that we're working with the most are our preschool kids. The more that they have the youngest or the smallest gap, their neurological gap, and their chronological age is the smallest. And so if we can catch them at this early age, we could really make a huge impact. So just wanted to share that, and just thank you so much for watching this and sharing this information with others.
Right, and I also wanted to include that we're also giving you a few videos that you can watch before the session, and if you watch these videos, then you don't have to spend your 30 minutes, you know, having us tell you about how the brain works and what the pons does and what the midbrain does. These videos are going to tell you about that. And then if you have questions about that, you can ask them. So you'll maximize your time and you'll be able to go deeper on the call with the BrainWorx team. So so that's added bonus in there as well. So make sure you click below, schedule your time, and see how neurological development and BrainWorx can help you, your child, or your classroom overcome these behavioral learning challenges that you've been experiencing.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Alma, for being on the show. And thank you all for watching this edition of the ADHD Toolbox. See you soon.